You obviously did a good job against DuVernay the first time around. What did you do so well in that game?
I just looking back at that game, it was a physical game. They made some plays, we made some plays, and he's a heck of a return. He had a big return to start the game last week against Cleveland. So every time you turn the tape on within the course of the game, he makes a big play, whether it's on a punt return or a kick return. So we'll have our hands full again going down there.
Rich, sometimes that field isn't the greatest. Have you seen anything recently? I know they played at home last week and it was cold. Have you seen anything field condition-wise that might impact your guys?
No, I just think from watching the tape, the wind was a little bit of an issue there, and always going down there at night, coming off the river. But, for me, the field, no matter where you play, it's the same for both teams, right? Game day is always the same. It's what you do, kind of preparation-wise, going into the cold or going into the heat. But I didn't see anything on the tape, except for the wind.
What's the coaching point for Emmanuel on the kickoff?
Yeah, let it go. It's going to be a touchback. Go down there and down the ball, And I just think he got lost where he was. You guys ask me all the time about the return guys, and I always say it's the decision-making process is a big deal. And he got himself going backwards. I think he kind of got lost where he was. And once it hit in the end zone, then it bounced back to the field to play, and he had no choice really to do it. But I thought he could have just gone into the end zone, made the catch, take a knee, and get the ball at 35. So, bad decision.
I know Savion's practicing again. I'm not asking if he is going to play, but what did you like about him, kind of his trajectory in that return spot?
Yeah, again, we thought he was making progress. He was understanding the reads and where to go, and we talked about this before, that they were starting to kick away from him. And, you saw really last week's game, they were trying to kick away from Bo. We couldn't get Bo in position to get the ball, and they were kicking away from him. So hopefully sooner or later we get a chance to get them both back there at the same time and see who ends up with the ball. But he's certainly going in the right direction before he got banged up.
What's it like kicking the week after playing in Denver with the altitude? Is there an adjustment to be made just going back to life as normal when you're not in the altitude anymore?
That might be a better, question for Brandon and our punter. Our punter felt like, obviously in pregame, he was hitting some big balls and getting some great hang times. And again, that's the second thing that's never happened to me is I've been in a game now where you don't punt and you lose, and I've been in a game where you punt once and lose, which is it's kind of crazy. But Brandon kicked today, and he kicked really well, and Daniel played well today as well. So we'll see what happens, but they didn't seem like to have any problem adjusting back to normal.
Rich, I think you've talked before about not all penalties are created equal. How do you feel just about how your units are doing in that regard with some of the ones?
Yeah, I thought we turned the corner a little bit. I think this past weekend was certainly disappointing. I think I've talked to you guys about the three different types of penalties, focus and concentration. Those are pre-snap penalties, offsides. I think, probably we got called for a bad alignment on, Carl Brooks on the field goal rush. It's debatable when you look at it, and then I think the fundamental penalty came from, Duff. He got the hold on the punt and kind of got himself in bad position on the set and did what he needed to do so we can get the punt off, And JJ's is just it's a selfish penalty. It goes in the selfish category. It's no place for it. Discipline is do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way you're supposed to do it, and do that over and over and over again. And I think he's has some remorse for that particular penalty. The punter's a protected player, and whether he knew it was the punter or not, it's just irrelevant. It's just there's no place for that. And I know Coach says that sometimes it doesn't affect the game, but they all affect the game. We put our offense on the 3-yard line after that penalty. So our job is to set the offense and set the defense, and certainly we didn't do it in that particular instance. Penalties go in different categories, but they're all bad.
As Romeo's gotten more return attempts as the season has gone on, what have you seen from his play, decision-making as he's progressed?
Well, not many ops last week, but I think in the Chicago game, he had that 16-yard return was pretty good. And, again, he's just seeing it for him, especially the way he's been practicing. He's been doing a heck of a job in the practice parts of the return game. So hopefully we can kind of get him going. I think the blocks are critical for us as well. We have to do a good job on the outside versus the the Gunners out there, and you know, Chicago's got two really good players that play out there, and they get a really good personal protector who gets down the field in a hurry. So we'll see what happens in this game. But he's enjoying doing it, I believe, and so from our standpoint, that's good to put a guy back there that wants to do it. And he's been doing a really good job in the red zone of when to block and when to fair catch, when to let the ball go. So hopefully keep progressing in that manner.
Was the, excuse me, was the Brooks penalty them saying he lined up too close to the center?
Who are we talking about now?
Carl Brooks.
That, you know, they said he hit the center in the head. So it started off with a bad alignment, I guess. But
They didn't announce it, you know, to us what the infraction was.
that's what they said, hit the center. But, yeah, that's what they said.
You guys good?
If I can, before I go, I know you guys are all sports nuts, so I would have done this in the beginning, but I know when I do something like this in the beginning, it kind of dulls your spirit about asking me questions that are difficult, like penalties and kicking the ball out of bounds and things like that. But I don't know if you guys saw that Steve Tannehill passed away on Monday, and when we got home from Denver, you know what happens is in our careers as coaches, they start writing your bio. And in your bio, they put all the things these guys did as players, and it makes it look like you get a lot of credit for it. And really, we just teach football. But I recruited Steve at South Carolina, and what's not written in my bio is his decision to come to South Carolina was critical in me being able to stand here today. So him passing away at age 52, my condolences to his wife, Tabitha, his sister Debbie, his dad, his two twin boys. Rob DeBoer texted me early Monday morning after we got back from Denver, and to see the text and to think of what he did for me, not only the player he was, but the kid he was. And then, you know, back then, it's a long time ago, but back then, early 90s, they didn't have stars and all that kind of stuff on recruits, but he was, you know, certainly one of the top two quarterbacks at the time coming out in the country. And his decision, again, you know, when you recruit somebody like that, we see it all the time, all coaches, we all get credit for all things we really have nothing to do with, when players make a great play and those things. But his decision coming to South Carolina when we had just gotten into the Southeastern Conference and the things that he did at the quarterback position, he's really an iconic player at the university. And he had the hair, the mullet floating out of the back of his helmet, and was a brash, confident player at that position before that was kind of acceptable. So my condolences out to his family. I appreciate indulging me a little bit, but he was sick, battling cancer for about 4 years. Didn't really tell me when I spoke to him in July that he was going through that. And to die at such a young age, and we get to where we get in our careers, and you're around a long time, to lose somebody that had that kind of impact, you know, that you feel like had an impact like that on your life, which I do, it's a tough thing. So appreciate you letting me do that. Sorry about getting a little emotional, but it is in our Italian blood that kind of happens to us. So have a great day. Go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering, Rich, like when you bring him up, when you think back to how, you know, your recruiting process with him and what he meant to that school, he's got one of the most famous plays in school history. I'm just wondering what your kind of best memories are, since I know you're obviously emotional and sad, but what...
Yeah, it's funny because I did a thing on the news in South Carolina last night, and they asked the same question. But when we went up there and beat Clemson at Clemson, you know, the iconic touchdown, and then when he did the Rob DeBoer through the pitch, and he did the swing for the home run, he puts his hands up there like that at the end, and, you know, he turned to the Clemson sideline, which, you know, fortunately for me, being in state 11 years, I got to be at both schools. And after that, I played against him, actually, because I ended up going to Clemson. But that particular game, you know, we started off 0-5 that year, and ended up, when he became the starter, went 5-6 and beat Clemson at Clemson, which we hadn't done the whole time I had been there. Clemson was certainly on top for a long time. But that's probably on the field, you know, that's the greatest memory I have of him. But he was just, he was one of those players that made everybody around him better. You know, people talk about Peyton Manning and what he did when he went to Tennessee, and how he makes all the players around him better. Well, at that time, he was that kind of a player. He had that kind of a spirit. He had that kind of a presence about him. He was a powerful personality that was a great teammate and just loved life. And I think once he became the starter, he played that way. And I think it was contagious. I think he showed the rest of the guys on the team what was possible for them in the future in the Southeastern Conference. Because at that time, when we switched from being independent to now recruiting in the Southeastern Conference, that's a whole different ballgame, you know. So I think that's probably, and it's a long answer, but that iconic part about him on the paw, his hands up, you know, it's a great picture, but it's certainly a great memory as well.